Joining me now for more on this is Michael Shoebridge from Strategic Analysis Australia. Michael, thanks for joining me. It's all about these concessions. Who will fold first?
Well, Danica, the first thing I'd say is no one knows what the outcome of these talks are going to be. So anyone that tells you they know, I would not listen to them any further. But concessions, well, I think Putin's going into this very clear about what he wants, and he's already got two big things. So the first thing he wanted was to pause Trump's sanctions on Russian oil. He's achieved that. The second thing he wanted was a face-to-face meeting with the American president on American soil, because that's an enormous propaganda coup for him. And what he'd love to do is split Trump and Zelensky again, and he knows he can because he's done it before. And he really wants to talk about everything but the war, particularly big business deals between Russia and America. And his wildest dream is to get Trump to help him end the war on Russian terms. So Putin's very clear what he wants. I think the good news is Donald Trump is a bit clearer going into this than we might have expected a week ago, because he spent the week caucusing with European leaders and with President Zelensky of Ukraine. He didn't do that before he met Putin last time. But yes, the risk is Trump gives away too much to try and get a deal, and that risks handing Russia a victory that no aggressor should be receiving.
Well, exactly. And this is just the thing. Though overnight, Donald Trump did raise the possibility of even offering Putin economic incentives to end the war in Ukraine. He says, though, he's confident of peace. Have a listen to this.
The more important meeting will be the second meeting that we're having. We're going to have a meeting with President Putin, President Zelensky, myself, and maybe we'll bring some of the European leaders along, maybe not. I don't know that it's going to be very important. We're going to see what happens. And I think President Putin will make peace. I think President Zelensky will make peace. We'll see if they can get along. And if they can, it'll be great. If I weren't president, in my opinion, he would much rather take over all of Ukraine. But I am president, and he's not going to mess around with me.
Michael, I guess if Russia doesn't come to the table on this, I know that Trump's confident, but if Russia doesn't come to the table, how much does Trump have to then make good on his threat to impose significant sanctions on Russia?
Well, I think we'd all like to see President Trump follow through on those sanctions, because they're what's brought Putin to the table. So, you know, if what is the most likely outcome here, which is they come out of it with vague commitments to keep talking, no ceasefire, and the war continues, then that's the moment Trump needs to follow through on the sanctions. And I think that's the most likely outcome. The best outcome is they agree a broad ceasefire that starts almost immediately. They freeze the conflict and they begin real negotiations. But I don't see that as a likely outcome.
Well, gee, all eyes are going to be on this meeting. There's so much at stake here. It's just so important. So we'll be watching it so closely. Michael, I just want to talk to you today. Marks, of course, 80 years since the end of World War II. We have stood by the US side by side in every conflict, and now this relationship is being tested even just this week, of course, through the recognition of Palestine. That's frustrated the Trump administration further. I wonder 80 years later how our brave soldiers would feel to hear that our own Prime Minister has been praised for his courage, but by a terror group. What do you think?
Well, look, I think it was very predictable that Hamas was going to celebrate what Mr. Albanese is doing. And the idea that the government approach to the conflict in Gaza is somehow isolating Hamas is just magical, deluded thinking. Hamas has got an enormous boost out of countries that hadn't said they were going to recognise a Palestinian state, moving to do that and isolating Israel. I think this looks bad in Washington, but also in history, you're right. Australian policy is usually more than meaningless words and gestures.
Yeah, look, I completely agree with you. Michael Shoebridge, we have to leave it there. Thank you so much for joining me on the show, as always.